We start talking about our flexible interface. When we started laying this out, we talked about, some of us have left-hand history, so we debated Java, JavaScript, how do we want to interface and manage this? And we decided down the path of a JavaScript backend, HTTP, and I'm going to toss a lot of this probably over to Dave to chat about. We used a REST kind of interface. It's not quite REST. He can get into the details on why it's not quite or where it doesn't quite map. And we've actually got a CLI that Patterson can talk about some too. We've got a very common interface that the whole world can use, and we're starting to expose out on things. So I don't remember this slide off the top of my head. So I'll just let Dave talk about the database or the UI some. So we've got a lot of common database model. We've got a different abstracted kind of interface. It's kind of following a lot of our similar designs in the back end for the I/O stack up in the management interface as far as how we lay things out, how we manage it, how we do it. The UI has a bunch of ability to find out about the back end. The back end can tell the UI something's changing. So it's pretty dynamic, pretty flexible. And I'll let Dave chat about the UI and his experiences and fun and advices from past experiences. Dave's with us from a lot of experience in storage. Go ahead.
Thanks, Kelly.
Talk about it.
So let's start at the bottom. The first point is talking about metrics. We actually use RRD database in the back end to give a year's worth of history. So anytime you want to make a change to the system, a user is presented with changing the system to suit their needs. We want to give them the tools to see what has the system done over time. So we store all the history about IOs, throughput, and we'll go through some of the graphing capability of that. But the first piece is we needed to have the data available to mine to be able to present up to the UI. We'll talk about customized detail views. So essentially, the user, different policies might have different needs from the presentation of the data. So VDI versus Exchange versus Seb's garbage bin, as he references it. So everybody is looking from a different perspective. We have users that can look at the graphics in different ways and save the graphs in different ways. So if a user A wants to see policy 1 information for Exchange, or user B wants to see policy 5 information for all the other VDIs that might be going on, you can watch the spikes independent of each other and customize that data. Management integration, Kelly hit on it. We use a JSON REST interface. It's an open API, so it's a text-based HTTP API. Over the years, people have done WebMSIM, they've done SNMP, they've done various management application interfaces, and the industry really, in the last 3 years, or 5 years, but 3 years, become centralized on more of a restful pattern. What that means is we're overloading HTTP to do the basic functions get, put, post, delete, and using those to actually integrate with objects that are on the system on a unique path. It's wonderful because you can debug the system, you can use the system very, very simply from an outside client, a browser, for instance, a web browser using JavaScript, or a Python CLI, or a insert your interface here. It is the foundation for a lot of things. Kelly referenced that we're not 100% RESTful. REST doesn't like sessions. The UI requires sessions, but we are 99.9% RESTful in that case, which pleases a lot of people to have their own management apps that want to integrate our system into it. We could bring up the UI real quick. You had a question in the back about how does a user deal with policies. Really, it's as simple as saying, I want my volume to be in policy A, B, C, or D, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and they create the volume in that policy, and if later on they want to, they can move that from policy 1 to policy 2 if they find they don't need that performance. So it's a user-initiated action to put the volume in the policy they think they need. Then they can view the metrics and say, am I meeting my targets? Am I meeting my goals? Am I way above or way below? If I'm not, they can make the movement. Do we want to bring up the UI real quick?
Sure, we can do that. As a couple of the other, I'll let Dave drive that for a minute, and then I'm going to mention a couple of the problems that the UI kind of has. Java, JavaScript, HTTP, all of that stuff is a standard, but it's not very standard across the board. You get with Google, you get with Firefox, you get with Chrome, you get with IE. You're running into all the different browser specifics on how they interpreted the spec. So I know Dave has had some headaches and heartburns over making it manageable and functional and look the same look and feel. That was one of our drawbacks of going down that path. If you do a Java Swing UI, you got full control. Every operating system you ever run it on is going to have a nice, consistent look and feel. Dave's had to jump through some hoops to keep, you know, IE and Google and Chrome and all of them looking the same. So it's definitely one of the troubles and challenges there, but I think we've managed to work that one through pretty effectively for us.
I'm going to briefly go through this. Obviously, you'll have screenshots of this, but the dashboard is the first screen presented with where you're seeing the IOPS and the megabytes and the response time of the overall system, as well as the capacity across the bottom. You can see whether or not the snapshot data or the customer data is presented in the consumed. As Paul referenced, we are thin provisioned, so what we export to the host is different than what is actually on disk. The graphs I alluded to, so I can look, I'll just scoot down here so you guys can see. Across the top, I can use a variety of top-level choices from system to service level to volume and really dig into the details that I need. And then line those graphs up against each other so I can see the system totals for policy 1 or histogram, so a metrics table. And that comes into play when I have the volumes due. So here is an actual volume against VMs in policy 1. The service levels represent our mission critical, our business critical. So these are really important or the not so important buckets, and the policies break down our actual targets. And if I want, I can take a volume and put it from policy 2 to policy 3, or I can create a volume in policy 3, and I'm just going to make it, actually I'll make it 14. I'll make a small one. So all of this is just using a JSON REST interface. It's a JavaScript application that runs on the box. It talks Ajax essentially down to the system. Question?
You say that one of your target market is virtualized environment. For example, VMware right now has storage profiles. Do you have a way to interconnect via API or something else the VMware storage profiles with your storage policies?
Yeah. So yeah, we'll have Patterson talk a little bit about that coming up. We'll be able to see. So we're going to demo that too.
We can talk about it.
We'll just let him talk about it.
Yeah, we can talk about it.
But to your point though, yeah, we have the ability to take this. This interface was chosen for a reason so that we can actually go up into other worlds. You see our user interface. I mentioned our CLI functionality, but we can do a lot of good things with this interface, up into integration, up into other environments. So that's kind of a quick run of the UI there. One of the other things that's kind of interesting about this is if you had multiple UIs up and running, when he created that volume, it would have popped into the other UI. We are session driven, as Dave said, so that multiple admins will actually be able to see things happening and changing at the same time on each other's boxes as they're doing them. So